Imagine this. You're on a table under bright lights, a mask covers your face, or a needle enters your arm, and a voice tells you to count backward from 10. You reach 8, maybe 7 if you're stubborn. Then nothing. Not a fade, not a drowsiness pulling you down, just a clean break. And on the other side, someone is touching your shoulder, telling you it's finished. Hours are gone. Your body was opened, repaired, maybe altered forever, and you felt none of it. So where did you actually go? And here's the stranger question. Did you go anywhere at all, or did you just stop in some real sense for a while? We like to picture anesthesia as a switch, on, then off, then on again. Simple. But that falls apart once you look closely at what's really happening inside a suppressed brain. Being put under is not sleeping. Doctors say you'll drift off because it's kinder than the truth. They're about to shut down your entire experience of existing. A sleeping brain moves through stages, light, deep, dreaming, constantly active, sorting memories. An anesthetized brain doesn't cycle at all. It drops into one flat, muted state and stays there. Less like drifting off, more like someone reaching inside your skull and turning every dial down at once. If it isn't sleep, then what is it? Anesthesia doesn't switch the brain off like a lamp. Different drugs target different receptors, creating a communication breakdown between regions rather than total silence. Scientists monitoring brains during surgery have found these drugs interrupt functional connectivity, the brain's way of linking its regions together. The brain doesn't go dark everywhere at once. Its parts simply stop talking to each other. Scattered islands of activity, unable to merge into one coherent experience. This connects to a leading idea about consciousness itself, integrated information theory. Consciousness, the theory suggests, isn't housed in one spot. It emerges when the brain weaves countless signals into a single, unified feeling of being someone. Anesthesia seems to attack that weaving directly. Regions might still flicker with activity, but they've stopped cooperating enough to produce any single experiencing self. Picture cutting every wire between the rooms of a house. Power might still hum somewhere, but nothing in that house can work as a whole anymore. Now here's the part that unsettles even specialists. There's a documented phenomenon called anesthesia awareness, where a patient's brain stays partly active during surgery, despite the drugs being given correctly. It happens in roughly 2 cases per 1,000 operations, tiny until you remember how many surgeries happen every day, worldwide. Most cases are mild, a stray sound, a vague pressure. But in rarer, darker cases, people have reported feeling pain during surgery while completely unable to move or signal for help. It's exactly why anesthesiologists keep refining their monitoring, pushing that risk as close to 0 as possible. This reveals something important. Being unconscious and being unable to move are not the same biological event, even though they usually arrive together. Modern anesthesia often uses several drugs at once, one for unconsciousness, one for pain, one paralytic to keep the body still. If the timing slips, the paralytic can work perfectly while the unconsciousness fails, creating that rare and horrifying gap. Going under isn't one switch, it's several flipped together, a careful juggling act. What happens the instant the drugs take hold? Researchers watching that exact transition have noticed something strange, a brief, chaotic burst of electrical noise, almost like a storm, right before the brain settles into its quiet, suppressed state. Some think this storm might explain the vivid, dream-like flashes patients sometimes report while going under or surfacing again. Fragments stitched together at the exact edge where the brain's wiring is breaking apart or rebuilding itself.
Which brings us to something genuinely strange: time itself. Patients under proper anesthesia don't feel like time passed quickly. They feel nothing at all. A 4-hour operation and a 40-minute one feel identical because there's no one inside experiencing any duration. Compare that to ordinary dreamless sleep, where you still sense vaguely that hours went by. Under anesthesia, that sense never forms because the machinery tracking time appears shut down entirely, not just dimmed. Scientists point to the hippocampus, a structure tied to memory, as central here. Anesthesia doesn't just block perception in the moment, it blocks new memories from forming, even for rare fragments of awareness that occur. This isn't an accident, it's a deliberate feature built into these drugs. Even in awareness cases, patients often walk away with zero memory of what happened, which is somehow both a mercy and deeply unsettling. Now, ketamine, because it breaks the pattern entirely. Most anesthetics suppress activity and cut connections. Ketamine creates a dissociative state where people describe floating outside their own body, detached from pain, sometimes eerily close to near-death experiences. Researchers have found it targets a receptor governing communication between the thalamus and the cortex, disrupting the sensory relay rather than muting it evenly. Quiet in some areas, oddly active and disorganized in others, which may explain why ketamine experiences sound so vivid compared to the plain blankness most people describe with other anesthetics.
So, are anesthesia and near-death experiences connected? It's genuinely contested, partly because near-death experiences are almost impossible to study under controlled conditions. Still, some researchers have noticed real overlap, floating, detachment, vivid imagery between near-death accounts and ketamine's effects. A few have proposed that a brain under extreme stress might produce its own internal compounds, accidentally triggering a natural ketamine-like state. It remains open, not settled. Now, waking up. Coming back from anesthesia is not one clean return to awareness. It's staggered. Basic reflexes return quickly, while judgment, speech, and short-term memory lag behind for hours. That's why people say ridiculous things right after surgery or ask the same question 5 times. It isn't a personality glitch, it's a brain rebooting different systems on different schedules, with judgment and memory usually the last lights to switch back on. Older patients face a higher risk of post-operative cognitive dysfunction, confusion, or mental fog that can linger for days, sometimes weeks. Researchers suspect aging brains struggle more to rebuild lost connectivity, making the return trip slower and rockier than for younger patients. Which brings us to the real question underneath it all. If anesthesia genuinely breaks the brain's ability to weave information into one unified experience, does that mean you, in some real sense, briefly stop existing, only to be rebuilt afterward by a body that never stopped running? There's no tidy answer, because it depends entirely on which theory of consciousness feels true to you. If consciousness really is about signals fusing into one felt experience, then anesthesia looks less like reduced awareness and more like a genuine temporary ending of you. Strange to sit with, especially next time you're signing surgical paperwork. And yet none of it feels that way from the inside. No perceived gap, no dread lived through in real time, because the mechanism erasing your experience is the same one erasing any memory that it happened. It feels like a sentence interrupted mid-word and picked back up again, with no sense of the space in between. Whatever is actually happening, a genuine pause in unified experience, some scattered fragment of minimal processing, or something science still can't fully name, the end result feels like absolutely nothing, which might be the strangest part of this entire story. One more structure worth naming, the thalamus.
Researchers point to it as a gatekeeper, a relay station that routes sensory information up to the cortex, where it becomes conscious perception. Many anesthetics specifically quiet this relay, cutting the connection rather than shutting everything down at once. Less like turning off a house's power, more like disconnecting that house from the grid entirely. Wiring intact, just nothing coming through from outside anymore. Individual differences matter more than most realize, which is why doses aren't simply calculated by body weight. Genetics, metabolism, and tolerance can all shift how much anesthetic someone needs. Some patients have required doses far above average due to rare genetic quirks in how they metabolize these drugs. This is why modern monitors exist, devices tracking brain activity, condensing raw signals into a single number representing depth of unconsciousness. They catch awareness creeping back before it becomes dangerous, a practical answer to the puzzle we've been circling. If you can't ask an unconscious brain whether it's truly unconscious, you build a tool that reads its electrical signature instead. There's a strange symmetry tying the beginning and end of this experience together. The same uncertainty that makes going under so strange applies just as much to waking up. Yet almost no one walks away from surgery feeling shaken. We've built an entire branch of medicine around safely inducing a state we still can't fully explain, and it works, consistently, millions of times a year, without a second thought. So where do you actually go? The honest answer is unsatisfying in the best possible way. You probably don't go anywhere at all. Your brain doesn't tuck your mind away somewhere quiet. It isn't running some private dream in the background the whole time. For most patients, under properly managed anesthesia, none of that happens. Instead, the networks stitching together your sense of being you simply stop cooperating for a while. And when they come back online, messily, slowly, sometimes strangely, the experience feels from the inside like nothing happened at all. Maybe that's the fairest way to end this. We spend so much energy asking where consciousness goes under anesthesia, treating it like a missing persons case, when the stranger, more honest answer might be that it never goes anywhere at all. It simply stops being assembled. The way a puzzle doesn't vanish when you scatter its pieces across a table. It just stops looking like a picture until someone quietly puts it back together again. And every time you've woken up from anesthesia, that's exactly what your brain has done, quietly, automatically, piecing you back together, without you feeling a single second of it happen.